Yeah, and how'd the Patriots do yesterday?
We are ready to begin. Coach Beam will be up first today. First of all, welcome everybody. Appreciate you joining us, and Happy New Year to everyone. Coach Beamer will make an opening statement, then we'll open up for questions.
All right, good to see everybody. Happy New Year to you. Great to be back in this room. Good memories in here. Off to a great start in 2021. Excited to be back. Our players are back in the building. Had an amazing team meeting last night. Everybody was here and accounted for that we expected to be here. Everybody was in there 10 minutes early and ready to roll. So it's an eager group that's hungry to get back to work, and that was really exciting to see. Obviously, today's our first day of class. So talked last night. It was more of an academic meeting, or was an academic meeting just to get acclimated for the spring semester. But great to have everybody in there and hard at work on 2021. I want to commend our academic support staff for the work they did with our players last semester and what we did as a team from a GPA standpoint. Really proud of them. And one of the core values I talked about when I got hired was competing in everything that we do, and that includes the classroom. And we're certainly doing that this semester as well, and excited about the start that we're off to this semester, and the group of guys that are back here and with us and ready to roll. Continuing to do individual player meetings with all the guys on our team going forward this week. Started that before Christmas, and then the ones that I didn't get to before Christmas, we're finishing up right now. Started that today at 7:30 a.m. and had a staff meeting this morning at 7 a.m. and the majority of the staff is here, as you guys have seen, and got here quickly and ready to roll. So really excited about the group of coaches that we've added. Really excited about the strength coach that we've added. It's an awesome group of guys, and should have some more news here soon, I hope, on the remainder of the staff, on-field and off-field roles that we're adding to the program. But it felt good last night to be in there. Every team meeting that I've had so far has been not really my team as the head coach. It was Coach Bobo as the interim head coach for the first two team meetings that we had. So it was pretty awesome to be in there with the staff that I've brought in, with the 2021 team going forward, and cannot be more excited. Really, like I said a minute ago, pumped about the coaches we're going to talk about today. Really looking forward to you guys having a chance to visit with them, and then meeting these other guys as we bring them into the fold. But just real quick, obviously Clayton White is our new defensive coordinator. I've had a ton of respect for him from afar over the years. His resume speaks for itself. I mean, our defensive coaching staff right now, if we ever need some more bodies on the field, there's probably not a more talented defensive coaching staff in the country. And I don't think we're done yet either with the last assistant coach that we're in the process of trying to work something out with. He brings immense physical abilities as well. But when you talk about Mike Peterson, Tracy Rocker, and Clayton White, you talk about three guys that have done it at the highest level as a player. So I'm pumped about that. Now we got to bring the offensive staff along, because we're not quite to that level yet from a skills standpoint. But he's a guy that has spent time in the NFL as a player. Obviously was a productive player in college, has ties to this area. Talked to a lot of people about him, and the first thing that every single person I talked to said was, you won't find a better human being in the country. And then I talked to a head coach of his, same thing. Talked to a former player, talked to an assistant coach, and that's the first thing that started with all of them. And finally, I just would have to call people and say, look, I get it. He's a great person. I need to know about him as a defensive coordinator, and talk to a lot of coaches that have been around him as a defensive coordinator that I trust and respect, and to hear them talk about him and his relationship with the players. I'm excited to have him here. It wasn't a slam dunk to get him here. I'm not the only head coach in the country that recognize what a elite defensive coordinator Clayton is. We had competition out there for his services, and I'm certainly thankful to Coach Tanner and our administration for giving us the resources to get him here and battle some of these other programs that called early on or while we were trying to hire him, and then some people that potentially may have called after we hired him as well. So pumped about what he's going to bring to this defense and the staff that he's going to put together as well. Marcus Satterfield, our offensive coordinator. Marcus is a guy that I've known for 20-plus years. We were graduate assistants together at the University of Tennessee back in the early 2000s. Somebody that, as a graduate assistant, it was obvious what kind of football knowledge and football coach he is. His dad was a longtime high school football coach in Tennessee, somebody that I've been friends with, but somebody that I've had a lot of respect for over the years as a coach. Been in a lot of different places, from Tennessee Martin and Western Carolina and Chattanooga to the offensive coordinator at Temple, and then out at Baylor with Matt Rule, and then he has NFL experience as well that was great for him this year. So he's done nothing but improve his resume and get better as a coach, and has been a head coach as well in the time that we've been together. So not just somebody that I've worked with that I know, but in my opinion, a phenomenal offensive football coach, great recruiter. I'm excited about being able to blend what they did with the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints Joe Brady offense with some of the elements that we did at Oklahoma as well. It wasn't just I know Marcus and let me call him. Obviously, I did my research on him, and I think you see from some of the things on Twitter that some of our former players with the Panthers have said about him in the last couple of days. Tells you what kind of coach he is and what kind of person he is. And then the coaches that I've talked to, from Matt Rule, who I had multiple conversations with, to Joe Brady, who I talked to about this as well. It's pretty obvious the impact he had in Charlotte in his 1 year there. And obviously the other places that he's been as well. I like the fact that he's been a part of two rebuilding or not rebuilding, because I don't see this as a rebuild, but two programs that he went into with Matt Rule that weren't where they are now, talking about Temple and Baylor and the way they went from where they were when they got there to where Coach Rule left them is really exciting for me to be able to tap into that also. And then Justin Stepp, he's a guy that a lot like Clayton White and even Marcus too, but regardless of who I called about those guys, it all started about what a great person he is. And I've known Justin and known of Justin for a long time, since I was here before. Obviously, he's well respected throughout this state. That's obvious when I hired him, the amount of people that I heard from, high school coaches in this state, friends of mine in South Carolina, fellow coaches of other places that he's worked, high school coaches in Texas that we had relationships with, from Justin and I both recruiting that area, him for Arkansas and me for Oklahoma. So he's well respected across the country. He's not just a receivers coach that has ties to South Carolina that we're bringing home. He is an elite wide receiver coach, with the guys that he was able to recruit at Arkansas, the guys that he coached at Arkansas. And certainly did not want to lose him. And that was a battle to get him here that I'm thankful that we won. Great human being. Again, want to congratulate he and his wife, Brooke. They had a baby just recently, so it's certainly been a pretty awesome month for him. New baby, new job, coming home to South Carolina. And like all these guys that want to be at this place, believe in this university like I do, and understand what we can accomplish here in this football program. All of us are on the same page from that standpoint. They're hungry, they're driven, they got a chip on their shoulder. One of the core values I talked to the team about last night was gratitude, and these three guys right here are certainly grateful to be here, and I am excited they're on my side, on our side. They're Gamecocks and ready to get to work. So with that, be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
We'll try to get through as many questions as we can. Just to give you a heads up, Coach does have a hard noon deadline, as he's got other meetings scheduled. So David with the first one.
Hey, Shane, thanks for doing this. You mentioned some of the guys that you had last night. Two guys that opted out, Ortre Smith and R.J. Roderick. Were they at the meeting today? Will they be part of the team?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of guys you guys are going to be asking about, and I don't want to go through every single player on the roster. We're going to get you guys an updated roster as soon as possible. You got my word on that. I've had some great conversations with R.J., some great conversations with Ortre and his family, and don't want to get into every single player on the team that has been here. Are they coming back, not coming back? But we will get you a roster soon. But I have had some good conversations with those guys. Thanks, David.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Shane. Can you walk us through a little bit how it went down with Mike and the transition in and then out? And now that situation is shaken out and you've got Marcus, how do you feel about the end point where you are now?
Yeah, had good conversations with Mike Bobo when I got hired here. He and I met the day I arrived in Columbia, which I guess was the night after South Carolina played Kentucky, or we played Kentucky last November, December, whenever that was. Had good conversations with him then. Mike communicated with me throughout this process. He made me aware last Tuesday night that Auburn had reached out and had an interest in visiting. And we talked Tuesday night. We met Wednesday morning in my office. He kind of expressed where he was coming from with his thinking in regards to Auburn at that point. And I listened as the head football coach of South Carolina. And in the end, he did what he felt was best for he and his family. And as the head football coach at South Carolina, my job is to do what I feel is best for the University of South Carolina football program today and going forward in the future, and that's what I did. We wish him well, and have nothing but we wish him well.
Mike Uva?
Shane, for people that are unfamiliar with the hiring process in terms of finding a guy like Marcus Satterfield, I mean, I think some people instantly just think, okay, this is a backup plan. But of course, as a coach, you have your A tier, your B tier, and your C tier. Can you kind of explain to people like that process in terms of, a situation that took place with Mike leaving and then having a guy like Marcus and just your comfortability level in terms of bringing him in?
Yeah, great question. I've talked in here before, and it's true. When I met with Coach Tanner and President Caslin and Chance Miller, we talked about kind of the guys at each position, tiers, ABC, guys that I wanted to keep in mind. And Marcus was a guy that I didn't put him on there at every single position, but he's a guy that I had listed. In my mind, he could be a potential offensive line coach. He could have been a potential tight ends coach. He could have been a potential quarterbacks coach. I mean, he figures in a lot of different places. Matt Rule will tell you his value to that offense and that program at different places that he's been. So Marcus was a guy that I had in mind for a lot of different positions. And when I got hired, and he and I talked about this, I had a conversation with him after I got hired about here's why I didn't hire you on this initial staff. It's my job as the head coach to get all the pieces to fit and the dynamics to make sure they fit, and really excited about Eric Kimry and Des Kitchings and Justin Stepp and where we were at that point. But Marcus was someone that I always had in mind, that I always knew I was going to hire here at South Carolina. So when the situation with Coach Bobo was resolved, that was a easy phone call to make, was not a backup plan by any stretch of the imagination. It's someone that I've wanted to hear all along, and thankful that it was able to work out in the end. And again, that's not because I've known him. I know him, which I know what I'm getting from him, and he's a no ego. He's just he's a football coach that's extremely knowledgeable about every position on offense, and I'm excited the fact that he was able to go to Carolina this year and work with the offensive line only broadens his knowledge of a coach. Outside he's been in the quarterback and tight end world. Now you're coaching offensive line, does nothing but just help you as a football coach. And he and I had those conversations over the summer about how much he had learned and how much he had gotten better as a coach just being in that offensive line world this year. So that's only going to make him better coming back as a coordinator for sure.
Colin Taylor?
Ethan, you kind of mentioned the analyst role, the off the field stuff. Do you know what that's going to look like, and kind of how you plan on structuring it, and what's been the response to the people you have talked to about filling those spots?
About some of the analyst roles you said?
Yeah, analyst role.
Yeah, been good. I meant this before, and I said it in the first press conference, and nothing has changed. Is the amount of interest in positions here have been strong and is strong, and it's the same thing for those roles as well. So Clayton and I, we left the office last night late, and he came over to the place where I was staying, and we sat down and talked for a while just kind of about some of those roles and guys he had in mind, guys I had in mind. That dynamic with analyst roles, graduate assistant roles, it's all got to fit with the staff dynamic and who's coaching what and where we need to get guys in at. So there's certainly qualified guys out there. There's a lot of former players that I'm interested in that have interest in this position. And we're just working through that offensively, defensively, and special teams wise to make sure it's the right fit. And not to change the subject, but along those lines too, and I said this when I got hired, I mean, I could have gone out and hired 10 name head coaches 24 hours after getting the job at South Carolina and had the staff done with, and I didn't. And that's because I wanted to make sure I had this thing right, get the right 10 guys in here. Have I possibly made a couple of mistakes along the way? I'll be the first to admit that. But I want guys that want to be here, not just going out there to hire some guy that has a fancy name because he's got a famous last name, or because he's coached in the SEC for 20 years. There's plenty of examples of guys like that it hasn't worked out for a lot here recently. I want football coaches. I want great recruiters. I want great people. I want people that are hungry and driven and believe in this place like I do. And I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I know you guys will have a chance to meet with Luke Day, our head strength coach, at some point soon. Just a dynamic personality. I had conversations with close to 10 strength coaches over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I hope Steve Fink doesn't get mad at me since this isn't really his press conference today. We'll talk about Luke at another time. But just to make an example, I had a bunch of conversations with some great strength coaches, sitting strength coaches in the Pac-12, Big 12, ACC, SEC, and the NFL, and all qualified guys, all guys that are great strength coaches. But I just couldn't put my finger on a guy that I said, you know what, that's exactly what we need. And I spent 90 minutes on the phone with Luke and was convinced as soon as I got off the phone. I tried to get him to stop talking because I wanted to just get him to shut up so I could offer him a job like during the 90 minutes I was that sold on him. And he's passionate about this place. You ask our players that met him last night in the team meeting. He wants to be here. I couldn't be more fired up about him. And, we'll save the Luke Day info for whenever we talk about Luke. But those are the guys. That's an example. And I feel that way about these other guys as well. And then I'm not naive. I mean, I hope we win a lot of football games here and guys have opportunities to advance their careers. But we got a bunch of guys here right now that want to be here, which I'm excited about. Sorry, Steve.
Greg Hadley.
Hey, Shane, just looking at the state of your quarterback room at the moment, do you anticipate maybe looking in the transfer portal or maybe even looking on the roster to help fill out that room?
Yeah, we're kind of evaluating everything. So Coach Satterfield and the offensive staff, we met this morning as a full staff at 7 a.m. We met, and then we broke up offensively and defensively, and we've been meeting each staff separate, just kind of going through our current roster, the recruits that are out there, potential transfers, going through every single position and trying to figure out where we are. And we've been doing that before those guys got here. And one like we just started it today, but we were trying to get Justin and Marcus and Clayton up to speed on where we are as a team. We're trying to improve the competition and the depth at every single position that we have on this team. And I wish we had unlimited scholarships. We don't, but we'll be creative and certainly going forward, do everything we can to get those numbers where they need to be at each position. And quarterback's no different than any other position. It's got to be the right dynamic if we add to that room. I talked about the guys. I talked to the guys in the first team meeting and talked about it last night. We always want to be about competition and competing in everything that we do, and that's no different when it comes to the positions on the team too.
Gene Sapakoff.
Shane, you just said a few minutes ago you didn't think this was a rebuild. What do you consider it? And also, everybody talks about, you and your dad and the impact he's had on your career. Can you speak briefly as to what impact your mother has had on you and your career?
Good. Smart man, Gene. I don't see it as a rebuild. I mean, Coach Tanner talked about it in the opening press conference when I got hired here, that this is not a rebuild, and it's not. I mean, I don't know what you call it. I call it I wake up every morning long before the sun comes up, and I cannot wait to get in this building. It's been kind of lonely here without the players. It's more energy than ever with the players in here today, and whatever you want to call it, it's a strong desire to get my butt in here early in the morning before the sun comes up. I leave here late at night after the sun's gone down. I don't do much of anything except sit in my office and try and make this program better and get around this building and make it better. I go back to the place that I'm staying. I'm text recruits, talk to recruits, and then I go to sleep. And I'm eager to start that process again each and every day and just go to work. And the results will take care of itself from that standpoint. And then my mom, I mean, how long do you have? She's unbelievable. A coach's wife, that unbelievable mom to my sister Casey and I. She was the one. Obviously, when your dad is a football coach, there's a lot of time that he's at work and away from you. So she was the one that was taking me to all my sporting events growing up. She was the one in high school that was traveling all over the state of Virginia to wherever we played, has never missed a game. I talked about it in the opening press conference. To this day, no matter where I've been, I coach a game and I come in off the field, and we go in the locker room after the game, and then when I walk in to get my cell phone, within 5 minutes of that game being over, she's called me. And that's been some late nights, staying up late to watch games, probably long after my dad fell asleep and went to bed. She was up late waiting and always called. And I can't say enough about her. Awesome coach's wife, awesome mom, and extremely loyal and supportive of our entire family. And my dad would tell you the same thing, about her as a coach's wife. Thank you.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Shane, good to see you again.
You too,
I was
Rick.
just wondering, what kind of message do you have for Gamecock fans? Some of them may be getting a little nervous when they see the number of players who are transferring out of the program and just wondering when everything is going to settle down and they can feel a little bit better about the state of the program.
Well, I'd hope they feel pretty good about it right now. I mean, I see some coaches that have left some really good jobs to come here and be a part of this thing. I see some players that we'll talk about later that have left pretty good programs to join this program. Certainly, when I got hired, didn't want to lose anyone, but knew it was part of it. I mean, University of Oklahoma, they just won their 5th or 6th straight Big 12 championship, and they got guys jumping in the portal. It's just part of it. It's college football nowadays, and guys are looking for better opportunities. And I understand that the guys that have left here, they did not come to South Carolina to play for me. They came to play for another coach, and I knew when I got hired that was going to be a possibility. And had conversations with those guys, and it was, respectful conversations both ways with the guys that left. And all I know is we got a bunch of guys on this team right now that we're in a team meeting last night, 10 minutes early, ready to go. Had one of our prominent players on defense yesterday texted me yesterday morning, said, Coach, can I meet with you at 2:00? And I'm like, oh gosh, what's he wanting to meet with me about? And all he wanted to do was just come hang out in my office and watch the NFL playoff games yesterday. So that's what I see. I see a lot of great coaches that are excited to be here. I see the way the staff is coming together. I see the group of players that are on this team and the energy and excitement they have. I walked in the building this morning at 5:50 a.m. I walked inside, and there were 2 of our players that were already in the weight room lifting weights and had long been at it at 5:50 in the morning. It's a hungry, excited group of guys. Are there potential things that could happen down the road? Sure. I mean, I understand. I'm not naive and think that everything's going to be perfect. There's going to be ups and downs, but we're just continuing to move this thing forward. And the other thing is, it's January, whatever this is, 10th or 11th. Yes, I've been on the job for a month, I guess it is. Normally this time of year in college football, every college coach in the country is at the AFCA Coaches Convention. They're sitting around, they're hanging out. People are interviewing for jobs. People are trying to get jobs. People are getting hired, fired. The NFL just made changes last week. I know there's a sense of urgency because the staff's not complete, but I only get one opportunity to get this staff right. I've learned and made some mistakes for sure, and doing my best to not make those same mistakes. I'm very, very thorough on the people that I want to bring into this program. I talked to Matt Rule for a long time last week, and one of the things he told me, he said he got hired as the offensive coordinator at Temple. He got hired as the head coach at Temple. Coach Rule told me, and before spring practice, the guy that he hired as his offensive coordinator bolted and went somewhere else. He promoted Marcus Satterfield to offensive coordinator. He went to Baylor, hired an offensive coordinator that he didn't have a relationship with. Before spring practice, that guy bolted, hired somebody from within. Both those guys that he promoted were still with him on the Carolina Panthers, and his whole thing was take your time, get this staff right, and that's what I'm certainly doing. And sure, I see guys leaving. Do I wish nobody had left? No, but we wish them well. I'm excited about the guys that are here, and we're working each and every minute of each and every day to continue to improve this team with the coaches, the staff, and the players that are here and will be joining us also.
Phil Kornbluth.
Hey, Shane, good morning.
Hey, Phil.
A flurry of quick questions for you. Are you
Questions or question?
Questions with an S. Are you confident the other coaches you retained are all now committed and set? They will not entertain any other outside overtures for other jobs, number one. Number two, what on-field position will Coach White handle? And number three, with Bobo leaving and Colin Hill apparently leaving as well, have you had any conversations with Ryan Helinski about the door being open for him to return if he's interested? Thanks.
You got 4 while you're at it, or you go with 3?
That's good. That's good. I got to go to breakfast.
Let me back up. Ryan and I had a great conversation when he called to tell me that he was entering the portal. We've exchanged some text messages since Coach Bobo left, and I'll leave it at that. So Ryan and I had a great conversation. I was back in Oklahoma when he called me to tell me that he was entering the portal, and we've communicated by text a couple times over the last week. Coach White, as far as the way we're setting up the defense, a lot of that will depend on how this last hire, the direction that we go. He and I have had multiple conversations. I'll let him talk about that if he wants to when you guys meet with him here in a minute. And as far as the other coaches on the staff, I mean, if somebody calls and offers somebody a head coaching job in a week where they can triple the salary they're making right now, yeah, there's a chance that somebody could leave, sure. Do I think that they're going to be leaving for other jobs? No. I mean, I hope not, but as you guys see, it's a part of college football. It happens. I met with the staff last week after Coach Bobo and Will Friend left, and just talked about that. I make sure they all understood that I chose them. I wanted them to be here, the guys that were left in that room, and that I wanted to go fight with them. That are there obstacles here? Are there challenges right now? Sure. Like when you get hired as a new head football coach in the SEC, it's not because things are great. There's problems. I don't want to hear like what the problems are. Like, tell me the solutions so how we can go attack this thing and get it right. And that's the conversation I had with our staff, and I told them I believed in them. I wanted to go fight like heck with them to get this thing going forward. And if anybody in that room didn't feel the way I felt, no hard feelings. Come let me know. And they've all assured me that they're with me, but also feel, I mean, I'm not dumb. It's not I've been in coaching for a long time. Guys get opportunities, and if it's an opportunity from a personal standpoint, professional standpoint, financial standpoint, sure. I mean, we'll wish them well and work with them through that process. I think the situation with Coach Bobo was a little bit unique, to say the least, and that's a little bit of a different story. But I want what's best for the coaches on this staff, and I've told them I want to help them advance their career in any way. That this is going to be a great place to work. That I want them here with me, and I promise to give them an environment that they love to be a part of.
And I promised Coach I'd get them out by noon.
We're good. You can keep going a minute. We can get a couple more.
Couple more. All right. Pete Acabelli.
Hey, Shane, how are you? Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Just, along lines, any other year that you'd get named coach, you wouldn't have this roster management stuff to deal with. Has it been challenging for you, or do you look at it as an opportunity to kind of craft the roster that you want?
No, it's been both, just to be totally honest. It's certainly been unlike anything any head coach has ever dealt with the transfer portal, with COVID. And let's be real. I mean, the same issues that we've dealt with some of our players leaving here to go to other places, we've done the same thing with players coming in as well. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, every single day when my phone rings, is it someone calling me to tell me they're thinking about entering the portal, or is it someone calling me to tell me they're wanting to come to South Carolina? I mean, there's a lot of emotions, just to be totally honest. There's a lot of emotions that I feel from the time I wake up each morning to the time I go to bed, and a lot of that is just dealing with the roster. Like, I'm so looking forward. I'm so glad the players are back in the building. Like, I'm so looking forward to just being able to coach, because I feel like I've had a phone attached to my ear for a month, whether it be recruiting, talking to the players on my current roster, recruiting guys outside the roster, trying to hire coaches. It's been a lot, but it's a challenge, and certainly running on adrenaline, but it's definitely been unique, but been fun in a lot of ways as well. And at the end of the day, let's get the guys that want to be here, and let's go to work. And that's what I'm excited about, working to get done.
Joe Gorchow.
Hi, Coach. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to touch back on a couple of things you mentioned. You talked about a couple conversations with Matt Rhule, and I'm curious, how instrumental has he been for you, just not just the hiring process of Satterfield, but also just trying to figure out how to best approach this new opportunity and assembling the right staff, because you make it sound like he's been a guy who's been pretty good to lean on during this process and some of your thinking along the way in assembling the right staff and people.
Yeah, he's been amazing. And we've just had a few brief conversations, traded some text messages over the last 4 or 5 days. And first of all, even before this, just the amount of respect I had for him, going back to what he accomplished at, Temple. And Marcus Satterfield used to talk about Matt Rule when they were together at Western Carolina a long time ago. And it was Matt Rule and Jeff Collins, the head coach at Georgia Tech now, and they were together. And Sat used to talk about these two guys and just how, different they were than the other coaches. So I've known the name Matt Rule going back to then. And then he reached out on his own, I'll be honest with you, to me. I hadn't contacted him. He reached out towards the middle of last week. Then all this stuff was going on with Mike and was great. And then since then, we've, talked a few more times about Marcus and about me putting together the staff. And he's somebody that I will continue to lean on, I'm sure. He's certainly busy trying to build it right in Charlotte and get his program right. I know they're trying to hire a GM and all that stuff, so he's certainly busy, so I don't want to wear him out right now, but I'm going to be relying on him. And there's a lot of guys that are in that role as well as head coaches that I have a lot of respect for. But what he did at Baylor, what he did at Temple, I saw it up close and personal being in the Big 12. We played him in the Big 12 championship last year. Phenomenal coach and phenomenal program builder, and excited about having Sat in the building to lean on him about some of the things they did, but also excited about being able to have him 90 miles up the road.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, hi, Coach. Could you just take us a little bit more in depth as to how the first impression Justin Stepp made on you, kind of how he stuck in your mind, and when you got a chance to hire a guy, what was it that stood out about him the most that said, this is a guy I want to bring on my staff?
Yeah, the thing, just going back, I mean, I've known him since I was here with Coach Spurrier before, and just listening to people talk about him. I knew about him as a person, always very positive, high energy, always had a smile on his face. Obviously, knowing his brother Josh when he was the head coach at Lexington High and getting to know his brother, just a great person. And probably, I mean, I had phone calls from I had multiple phone calls from Chad Morris when I got hired, immediately recommending Justin. And talked to Jeff Scott down at South Florida and talked to a lot of people about Justin. And it was just over the top, the praise, that I got from people about him. And then just having a chance to get to know him as a person during this process of him making the decision of whether or not he was going to come or stay at Arkansas. Just he's a high character guy, and that's the best I can say. At high energy, but just a solid person. And Coach Pittman at Arkansas kept him for a reason on the staff this past season after Coach Morris was let go, and it's obvious to see why, and it's obvious to see why they didn't want to lose him.
We'll take one more. Mitch Brown with the last one.
Coach, you've been talking about just making sure you have guys that want to be here in Columbia. How much does, when building your staff, how much does trust go into the process? Obviously, you want to make sure you have the right guys here, but also guys you can trust and have continuity and grow together.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's about. We've told our players that we've got to be able to trust each other. And I told them in the first team meeting, and I meant it, that I got to earn their trust with the way that I act each and every day. And same thing goes with the coaching staff. Like, loyalty and trust are big with me. And I'm doing my best to find guys that have those same values. And when I find out that, somebody tells me one thing but means another or does another, I have a problem trusting that guy. And certainly doing my best to make sure that we have those guys that I know when they tell me something that I can take it to the bank. And when somebody gives me their word, you take that to the bank. Do other opportunities come along that certainly people are interested in exploring? Sure, but just be honest and communicate is what I've told our staff, and that's what we'll be about going forward. And confident that I got 8 guys in that staff room right now, and a building of staff that will be honest and communicate with me going forward as things come about, and we'll take each situation as it arises.
All right, thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you, guys. Have a great week.
Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, next up will be Clayton White, defensive coordinator. And we'll open up for questions for him. Please introduce yourself to him so he starts putting a face with a name.
Yep.
David with the first one.
How's it going, Coach White? David Cloninger with the Charleston Post and Courier. Welcome to Columbia. Just how did this job come about? Coach Beamer said that you were kind of in demand. So what made South Carolina stand out as the place you wanted to be?
I got you. First, I want to obviously start out without a doubt thanking Coach Beamer for showing the interest in me as a defensive coordinator here at University of South Carolina. I'm very honored, very grateful for this opportunity. I do believe that things are meant to be. I mean, things are always meant to be. I think that, it's one of those things where me and my family are still trying to come to grips to it, come to grips with this thing. Saturday was a very exciting day for us when we got named the defensive coordinator here. But I told the defense yesterday, that Saturday was a very exciting day. But when I came to work on Sunday, and I came to work on today, obviously, now I'm motivated. Now I'm fueled to get to work. I truly believe this is a great place. It's a great university with a great tradition. But we're very excited about it. The process was, one of those. It's a regular process, and I'm just glad to be here, man. Very, very excited.
Mike Yuba.
I know fans, they always get excited about this, but as from a coaching standpoint, obviously you have a past of doing a 4-2-5 defense, but kind of just talk to me in terms of what you've seen from the film that you probably have watched on South Carolina through your interview process and what you kind of envision in being able to run for a base defense.
I got you. So, trying to figure out the base defense before you actually see your players is kind of difficult to do. But obviously, my history, my past has been an aggressive version of a 4-2-5, a very multiple version of a 4-2-5 defense where, what we're able to do, whatever we need to do and adapt to our talent that we have. Every single week, your defense is not going to be a different defense, but things may have to adjust and things may have to change. But for the most part, we base out of 4-2-5, and sometimes it may start out the game in a 4-3 or 4-4 or a 3-4 defense. But it's a multiple aggressive scheme that allows our players to play fast. It allows our defensive line to attack up front. It allows our linebackers to be downhill and read great keys, and they have an opportunity to play fast. Our DBs are going to be up close on coverage. Our DBs are going to be, when they're blitzing, they're going to be blitzing with a purpose. So that's kind of the mindset. I think I have a great coaching staff right now that we're building, and I really do feel great about things right now as we start them. But our ultimate goal is right now is just get our guys, just focus on their readiness to play. And it starts right now in January. You can't wait till the month of August or the month of May to start thinking about being ready to play a football game. So the focus on their readiness is the ultimate goal for me right now.
Josh Kendall. Josh, you're on mute. Let's go to Greg Hadley while Josh is figuring out his computer.
Hey, Coach. Greg Hadley with the State Newspaper. Just going back to your scheme for a sec, I was just curious if there's, a lot of 4-2-5 schemes that kind of have, a hybrid versatile role, and how do you envision that role? Is that something that's part of your defense, and is that more, say, a defensive back or a linebacker? How do you kind of figure that out?
That's a great question, Greg. The most important thing with the 4-2-5 is that it's another guy that can do multiple things. So as we're going through the process right now, evaluating the roster, I'm asking that question: Can he run? Can he hit? Can he cover? What kind of cover guy is he? So, Coach Peterson, Coach Rocker are obviously the ones that's been here in the past, that's here right now, and those guys have been phenomenal in regards to just giving me information, making me feel however I'm feeling about if I can my defense will adjust here, but it's looking pretty good right now. But that guy has to be a player that can do multiple things, and I'm still learning names, but I'm starting to feel good. We got a couple of tags on our defense that slid underneath that nickel spot that I'm excited about to see.
Pete Acabelli.
I feel bad for Josh right now.
Don't feel too bad for Josh.
All right.
Hey, Clayton, this is Pete Acabelli. I'm with the Associated Press here in South Carolina. What do you tell, along those similar lines to the last question, what do you tell guys, prospects, about what you expect from them as a player when they play for you?
That's another good question. Well, in the recruiting process, you really have to, for me, I try my best to be as genuine as possible when I'm talking to recruits. And the first thing I tell a recruit is that, one, I'm going to care about you as a human being on and off the field. Number two is I'm going to teach you the game of football. You're going to learn from day one to day, with your last day here, I'm going to teach you football every single day to where you maximize your potential as a student athlete. And the last thing is, every single day as a human being, as a football player, I want us to improve in something. So those are the three things that I kind of that's kind of my philosophy as a person, as a football coach, so I can be as natural as possible. But those are the three things that I want to make sure a recruit knows who I am, and when they come here, that's the focus for their career.
Eric Boynton. Eric? All right, let's go to Joe Gorchow.
Hi, Coach. Joe Gorcho, WIS News 10 here in Columbia. Hope you're doing well. You mentioned you want this defense to be aggressive, but this is also a unit that perhaps needs a boost in confidence in its mentality for how it's played the last couple of seasons. So I'm curious, how do you infuse confidence with your aggressive scheme?
Well, the first thing you have to do, you have to get them in the building as much as possible as a unit, and as position groups, and the teaching begins. All right, so talking in words and slogans and all those things don't really do anything. I mean, they look good and it sounds good, but the first thing you got to start doing is getting them in the building and make sure they understand the mindset that we have to have as a football player at this level. It is a coach me coach attitude. It is get in the building, let's talk about football. And it starts from day one, which is, for us, it'll probably start next week. That's kind of the goal for me, is on Monday, let's start going. That's how you get confidence in any defense. And I hope that's the right answer, but I know that is the answer for this defense. But there's no words, there's no speeches right now at this moment. I can say whatever I want to say right now, but if they don't know what they're doing on the field, they're not going to be confident.
Colin Taylor.
Clayton, kind of going back to recruiting, when you evaluate any position on your defense, just what kind of players are you looking for? And are there any qualities that stand out more to you on the recruiting trail than others?
Yes, there's a couple things, man. Obviously, each position has a specific criteria that you have to abide by. But most importantly, for a football player itself, I look for his size, his toughness, and his instincts. What kind of football player is he? What's his size? Is he a big kid? Is he a small kid? That don't mean that I'm taking one or the other. But what is his size? How tough is he? How mentally tough is he? How physically tough is the kid? And then his overall football instincts. I think that's if you can get more of the STI kind of players, I think you guys have a better chance to be successful as a defense, because people think defense is just go run and hit, but it's really not. You got to have some IQ, some understanding of offenses, some understanding of spatial awareness and what's going on the field and offense, and most importantly. But I think that's the ultimate goal is when you're out recruiting, what's his size, his toughness, and his instincts. And then, for example, if you get into the cornerback room for me or the DB room, I look for speed, burst, and change of directions. It's very simple. They got to have those three.
Mitch Brown.
Was obviously you're coming from the Conference USA, where there's a lot of mid-major schools and FBS schools, or schools that transition from FBS. When you look at the offenses that you had to face, and guys like Mason Fine and North Texas and Old Dominion and UAB over the years with those prolific offenses, how do you feel like it's prepared you for the jump up to the SEC?
That's a really good question. I truly believe that going to get some coaches like a Lane Kiffin, Doc Holliday, the coaches at UAB, like you said, I think just going against those brains and going against those coaches and that style of play, definitely prepared me. Those guys have made me a better coach. That was one of the last few things that I said to Lane Kiffin on the field when we played him. I said, you made me a better coordinator over my career, just going against you and how you call plays. And we had some battles. He was a tough opponent, but I think Conference USA got a person like me way more ready than what it may seem.
Phil Kornblut.
Okay. Hey, Coach. This is Phil Kornblut, Sports Talk Media Network here in South Carolina, and welcome to the Palmetto State.
Absolutely.
Just a couple of quick things. Have you given much thought as to which position you plan to coach? How much input will you have in hiring the last assistant on the defensive side? And as far as you personally on the field, coaching a game, do you like to be on the sideline, very much hands-on, or do you prefer to be up in the booth? And in your mind, what's a good day on defense outside of a shutout and not allowing a yard? What's a good day on defense?
So to start out with the coaching staff, obviously it's everything we do is a collaborative effort here. You know, everything's a team first type of mentality. Obviously the defensive staff, me and Coach Beamer and myself will select the final candidate for a position here. Can't really go into that right now, but and then based on who that person may be, I'm a flexible coach. You know, I play linebacker in college and in pros, and I've coached DBs most of my career. So very confident in coaching either linebackers or secondary. The second part of your question was, can you repeat that second part, please?
Yes, as far as do you prefer to be on the sideline, hands-on with the guys, or up in the booth?
So once again, that really depends on the next piece of our hire, and I really make that decision based on once I get to know the coaches, meaning who if there's another coach who's never been in the box and vice versa, I would obviously sacrifice whatever it takes. But in the past, I've been on the sideline coaching the defensive backs and obviously calling the plays and making sure that everything was good. And I had another guy up in the box who's kind of like my second eyes, who just got promoted to the defensive coordinator at Western.
John Whittle.
Hi, Coach. John Whittle from thebigspur.com. How much film have you watched on this defense? And is there anybody or a couple of guys who you've watched who you know will be back who have kind of caught your eye? And with that in mind, JJ Mbare, I think, just announced that he'd be back. What have you seen out of him and probably some limited viewing?
Very limited viewing, like you said. I mean, I've studied South Carolina defense in the past. Some of the things that the defense presented, I kind of liked. So I've seen the talent up front. That's where my eyes were set at. Obviously, they had DBs in the past. I have not had an opportunity to study each player's specific traits, but I've definitely watched some of JJ's film, and that's the guy I've been the most impressed with. I've seen him the most in the building so far in my 2 days here. That's definitely part of the plan. I can't wait to evaluate each individual, who they are on the field.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Coach, welcome to Columbia. Rick Henry, WIS-TV. When you were describing what you're looking for in a player out on the recruiting trail, I was just wondering, does that sum up the type player that you were in college and in the NFL? And also, when you look at your coaching stops, which stop or which experience really played an important role in formulating the way that you approach your job?
Yep. So the very first question, I'm not quite sure. I know I had fun on the football field. I was a smart player who played multiple positions. I was a high school quarterback. I was a college safety and a college linebacker. So, and I was an NFL special teams player. So I kind of consider myself. I didn't have the size, but for my size, I was tough and I had instinct. So I feel like I fit that mold. I didn't last that long, but I feel like I fit that mold. And the second part of your question. Can you repeat the second part of your question? Y'all killing me with these two questions, man.
Okay. When you look at your different coaching stops that you've had, is there one in particular that really plays the most important role on how you go about your job now, or just your defensive philosophy?
So from a coaching style standpoint, I had some big time coaches who were very active in my development as a football coach. My first job, I was hired by Matt Rule and Jeff Collins. So that's immediate impact on your coaching career right there. Two guys. A guy by the name of Scott Shaper was very active in my development as a football coach. And then as I got into my career, I think the best thing that I've done is two things that I've done that I feel that I use every single day. Is one, I was a special teams coordinator for almost 7 to 8 years. So that's your first opportunity to get up in front of the team and present yourself and show your leadership skills. And then the second thing that I did that I think is very gratifying is I coached running backs for 2 seasons at the University of UConn. Just being on that side of the ball and seeing what defenses do, seeing what defenses like to do, and how you can attack defenses is the only reason I'm standing here today. I truly believe that. But obviously, every stop has been great. Obviously, WKU is my first time calling plays and being a coordinator. Obviously, that was a major impact, the reason why I'm standing here. But the ones that you guys may not have known about were those other ones, besides the obvious.
Michael Espy.
Hey, Coach. Michael Espy from ABC Columbia here in town. I don't think we saw many defenses that were just great this year. Offenses have set records now for the last, 10, 15, 20 years. It's been a trend that we've been seeing. I'm wondering why you think that is and how difficult that makes your job now coming into the SEC.
Yep. Offenses definitely have taken a step, towards up a little bit. I think some defenses are catching up, and that's kind of our goal as an offseason as a defensive staff or defensive world. We talk about how can we catch up and definitely combat some of the things that our offenses are doing that, as far as getting up all these points and we coming up with ways. That's the goal. Our ultimate goal is to stop teams from scoring. I think within your scheme, you got to find a way to understand, teach your guys that them scoring points is how you lose football games, and just continue to put that into their minds.
Let's go to Cade Crenshaw.
Hey, Coach. Cade Crenshaw with Student Gamecock Television, the student TV station here on campus. Earlier, Coach Beamer mentioned that, you won't find a better human being in the country than you. So what are some of those things that make up you as a person? What makes you get out of bed every morning and do the things you do?
I got you. That's a good one. To me, my thing is I try to be as loyal, as genuine as possible. Because to me, I think if I just do that, it's gotten me here, being who I am. So being honest with everybody, trusting people, and just being responsible and just being a grown man at the end of the day. Just do things right all the time, every day of your life, and good things will definitely come back to you. I think those are the main things that I kind of focus on, that make sure that, I respect everyone and just being loyal and just being who I am. Nothing really special, but I appreciate that. That's a great compliment from Coach Beamer, but that's really what the focus is about.
Colin Taylor.
Yeah, Clayton, I guess you've mentioned that 4-2-5 scheme and whatnot. I guess when you judge a defense and the progress it makes and how efficient it is, what are some stats that you look at? What are some metrics that you really lean on to see whether or not you're being effective defensively?
The first thing is, did we win the football game? All right. Did we win the football game? First thing. Second thing was, how many points did they score? All right. How many turnovers did we get? And how were we on third down and red zone? Those are the 5 things for me that I kind of like, my eyes and my mind go right to at the end of the game. And that lets me know, kind of if we had an opportunity to win, that lets me know if I gave the team the best chance to win.
John Del Bianco.
Hey, Coach. John Del Bianco with thebigspur.com. You're a North Carolina native. You've spent a lot of time coaching in the state of North Carolina. I'm curious, how excited are you, to kind of get back to this region? And what's your recruiting history in recruiting the state of South Carolina, which has been pretty good to the Gamecocks on the defensive side of the ball?
Definitely glad to be back in the Carolinas. It was kind of funny yesterday. I got a couple of text messages when it says "Welcome home." Everybody was like, "Wait a minute, you're not from South Carolina," but it depends. If you look at the big picture, the Carolinas are just one big old thing. But I'm definitely excited to be here back home, as they want to call it. But as far as recruiting in South Carolina, I would say probably 8-9 years in the state of South Carolina of total recruiting of all my stops. So we all know this is a talent-rich state that definitely produces some big-time college players and plenty of NFL football players.
Scott Eisberg.
Hey, Scott Eisberg at Channel 4 down in Charleston. Saw a tweet yesterday from Stephen Duncan's dad saying basically, what you sent him when Stephen broke his foot, and it said that that's the kind of man that Gamecock football is getting, or something to that order. Is that the kind of guy you are? Are you kind of the compassionate coach, or are we going to see you on the sideline just chewing out guys and in their face and rough and tumble on the sideline?
I guess that tweet, I kind of didn't. I forgot that I did that. That definitely, touched me a little bit when I saw it. I was like, wow, that you never know when you do something like that what it's going to mean for someone and them. So obviously, when Stephen got hurt, and Stephen was one of my favorite players on the football team at the time. I don't know what it was. I just love Stephen Duncan. And then my son, I asked him one day, "Who's your favorite son?" He said Stephen Duncan, and we never had that conversation. So when Stephen had his surgery, I just felt like it was the right thing for me to do, is to reach out to his father, just let him know that we were thinking about him. But I think that's for far as that's really who I am, so you never know. One of these days I'm probably gonna be texting one of you guys something random one day, and hopefully we build that great relationship to where, make sure we understand this is college football. This is the life we chose, and you never know what's gonna happen.
Last question goes to Eric Boynton.
Yeah, hi, Coach. Eric Boynton with the Spartanburg Herald Journal. You just touched on recruiting. You kind of almost a dream in North Carolina, and especially in Southeastern Conference. Is this kind of like a perfect storm for you?
Eric, a lot of your question was kind of broken up. I'm going to ask you, did you ask me was this like a dream stop for me?
Yeah, just did you always have an eye on maybe getting back to the Carolinas a little closer to where you're from and where you went to school, and how important is that for you as far as part of taking this job?
Yep. To be honest with you, I actually left my alma mater to go to be the DC at Western Kentucky. So just being close to home is kind of really not always the goal. It's always about the next opportunity and the next challenge for my coaching career. Is that going to help me become a better football coach and help a program win? And the fact that it was in the Carolinas was definitely a bonus piece, icing on the cake, as you would say. Obviously, it's a great university. One, it's a great conference. Two, then obviously the location was a huge thing for me and my family. We still have family in the Carolinas. My wife is from Florida, so that puts us closer there. We have a home in North Topsail, North Carolina, so that puts us closer there. So it was perfect. It was unbelievable. Like I said, we still coming to grips to it as a family. But like I said, when I'm at work, I'm motivated and fueled to work. When I get off today, my son's gonna still ask me where are my pictures at, where's the locker room pictures at, where all that stuff that I see on YouTube. So he want to make sure it's all real. Great question.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you guys very much. I look forward to meeting the rest of you guys the rest of the season and the spring. Good luck with everything you guys decide to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next up will be Marcus Satterfield, offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. He's going to make an opening statement, then we'll open up for questions.
How y'all doing today, guys? Excited to be here. It's been a whirlwind since the middle to the end of last week to getting here on campus yesterday afternoon in time for the team meeting. Really excited for this opportunity. Really excited to be back with Shane. When we stopped working together 20 years ago, we didn't think it would take this long to get back together. Excited to be, back in what I really love, the SEC, and a great university like South Carolina. So, with that being said, I'll take any questions y'all have.
Michael Linana's got the first one.
Hey, Marcus, Michael Linana from the State newspaper. You were just talking about your relationship with Shane 20 years ago. I mean, what was that relationship like then? Who is he like then? Who are you like then? And how have you guys evolved since then, now that you're back together?
I was a little nutty, I'm sure, and I still am. And Shane's always been the same. You could tell Shane was built to be a head coach, being around his dad. He always kept me under control and kept me out of trouble when we were GAs and made sure I was staying straight. The cool thing about Shane, I think, is he's probably gotten me 3 jobs in my lifetime. Like ever since we worked together, he's made calls and reached out to people to help my career. And one thing I've always said about Shane is how hard he works. And sometimes, having the last name like Beamer opens doors for him. And I think he works really, really hard to prove that he's gotten everything he's gotten, not because his last name is Beamer, but because he's a really good football coach, steady football coach that works his butt off at everything that he does. So I'm glad that he's gotten this opportunity and we get to do it together.
Dick Cox.
Hi, Coach, I'm Dick Cox with Lindy Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting. What is the most important thing you want people to know about you?
That I'm going to bring a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy. I'm going to invest in the kids. I got to coach offensive line last year in Carolina, so that I've coached every position on the field on offense. I think that so I bring a lot of flexibility from that standpoint. But I want people to know that we're going to play an exciting brand of football. That we're going to have a lot of energy. The kids, when they come on campus and see our offensive staff and how our offense puts what brand we put out there, and they see us practice when they can come get on campus again, it's going to be something that they're going to want to be a part of. And I think, first, last and foremost is just the fact of how much I'm going to put into this and make sure that, University of South Carolina Gamecock fans are going to be proud of the product that's on the field.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Marcus, Mike, you from Watch Fox Sports. Can you kind of explain this process in terms of talking with Shane? Because obviously you guys have a history, and I think some people, they see the hire on Wednesday night. Can you kind of explain kind of like what was going on in terms of the last couple of weeks and when Shane actually first reached out to you? Because it seems like it wasn't just on that day to hire you as the offensive coordinator.
We'd talked a couple times. When he got the job, I was really excited for him. And I was perfectly content in the NFL doing what I was doing, and I was telling him, like, I'm not calling you for a job. I'm just calling to congratulate you. We talked a couple other times just about staff, people he was thinking about hiring. Did I know them? What would be a good direction for him to go in? And then we just kept talking, and certain situations happened where a couple guys left, and it opened a door for me to come in here where I am today. And I think it's just, I was a guy that he trusted and knew I could do the job. And it really was not even, I don't even think it was planned. It just kind of happened through conversations over the last couple of weeks, but there were never conversations like, hey, Shane, you should hire me as your coordinator. It was just one of those things. Timing happens for a reason, and I'm here.
Colin Taylor.
Colin Taylor from Rivals.com. I guess you've obviously learned under Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and Shane's learned from Lincoln Riley a little bit too. Can you kind of talk to me about what this brand of football, this offensive brand of football you're hoping to play will look like, and how much will it merge your background and Shane's?
Yeah, that's, a lot of people come into these things with these grandiose statements of a pro-style offense or an RPO offense or a triple option offense. I think we're just going to be a really good offense. I think we're going to blend, what Shane did at Oklahoma, what I've done my entire life, what I've learned from Joe Brady, and we're going to try to maximize our personnel. And the cool thing about our offense is we can move people all over the field, and wherever we can get people to create mismatches, which is what Joe, I learned a lot from him this year, just being able to get in different formations and getting a guy with a certain skill set lined up on another defender that gives us a mismatch and utilizing him. So the main focus of our offense is, to create explosive plays, score touchdowns in the red zone, win the situations, and then first and foremost, don't beat yourself and play clean football and take care of the football. So it'll be a brand that, again, I don't think you can put a label on it because it depends on the personnel you have. Like maybe certain personnel allows you to be more RPO driven and spread and quarterback run, and then there's other personnel that allow you to be more pro style, empty formations, progression passing game. So we're going to do, whatever our guys can do. I haven't even, I met our guys one time last night. I haven't even got to get on the field and coach them or meet with them yet, but we're going to do and maximize what our guys can do.
Pete Acabelli.
Hey, Marcus, this is Pete Iacobelli. I'm with the Associated Press here in South Carolina. Welcome. Do you, you talk about the players and you haven't had a chance to meet them or coach them yet. As far as the quarterbacks go, there don't seem to be a lot of options in that room yet. What do you expect out of your quarterbacks, and how do you see that that group evolving as you get deeper into this job?
I think, it's amazing with Luke. When I was at Baylor, we were evaluating quarterbacks, and it's 2018, and he was still in high school. And I remember reaching out to him on Twitter and messaging him on Twitter when I was at Baylor to come full circle now. And I'm at a team meeting, and I'm talking to him, and I was like, I don't know if you remember, but I was actually messaging you on Twitter, and that was kind of a cool little deal. But between him and Colton and Connor, I think that we got three guys in there that at least can start the competition. Everything that we do offensively is going to be revolving around competition. So there's a room that guys are going to be able to come in and compete and try to earn the starting job. I really like what I've heard so far about Luke, his leadership skills, his competitive spirit, his ability to do a bunch of different things. Really excited about Colton. Got to meet him last night. He's been here for a week, and so this is all new for him as well. I think they all give us a chance to do some things on offense, and we'll start from there. You got to have a starting point, and that's what we've got, and we're really excited about it.
Hale McGranahan.
Hey, I'm Hale McGranahan with the South Carolina 24/7 site, BigSpur.com. I'm just curious how familiar you are with some of the other offensive personnel. Have you been able to watch much film or tape on any of those guys?
Yeah, I don't like to say a lot of names, especially when I'll need to look down to make sure I'm saying the right names, but I can just tell you right now, really excited about the backfield, about our halfbacks, our running backs. I think we can have a lot of productivity there of guys that played last year and guys that are coming off injury. I think that we're going to have a chance to be dynamic. Really like our guys up front. I think, we have a chance to be, top tier from an offensive line standpoint. I think that, we got some toughness, some athleticism, got some potential to have some depth there. I'm really excited about that unit, and then got really good tight ends coming back that allow us, if you're going to throw the ball down the field, you got to be able to utilize the middle of the field, which Shane would tell you that, coaching tight ends at Oklahoma in the last couple of years. And I think we got some guys with some physical traits and athletic ability to stretch the interior part of the field. So I'm really excited about all those groups, moving forward into spring.
Phil Kornblut.
There we go. Hey, Coach, it's Phil Kornblut, Sports Talk Media Network here in South Carolina, and welcome to Palmetto State. You actually beat Shane to the head coaching room with your 2 years at Tennessee Tech. From your experiences there, what can you share with him about the ups and downs of the job and overseeing a program like you did for 2 years?
I think Shane's on point already. You can't be emotional. You can't make decisions on emotion. Invest in your players. Make sure that they know that you love them and you care about them and you're there for them. Consistently lay out a standard of performance and live up to that every day. Again, I don't think there's really much I can give Shane that he doesn't already know or hasn't learned from the guys he's worked for or watching his dad as he's growing up. But I think he's well equipped. But there are certain things behind doors that head coaches' decisions you have to make, and I think I'm a guy that I'm not afraid to give an opinion or make a decision that he can lean on if he has questions or wants any help with anything or any matters.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Marcus, Josh Kendall with The Athletic. How are you? When you hear the term complementary football in terms of how the pace that you use specifically affects the defense, what does it mean to you? And did you have any discussion like that with Shane or with Clayton yet?
I was going to go to that route. I think complementary football is you have to again, play both sides, kicking game, defense and offense. I think that you have to be careful. If you are going to use tempo, you better get a first down or two. If you go out there and go 3 and out, like we all know, you're putting your defense at a great disadvantage. So we have to be smart. I think one of the things that Oklahoma, everybody thinks they go fast all the time. They really are not that fast. I mean, when you watch them, they're very deliberate in their run game. They're very deliberate in their play style, and then all of a sudden they'll mix some tempos, some spontaneous plays on you. And that's one of the things that we did at Carolina this year. I mean, we would huddle up. We would play at a good tempo, and then we'd get a first down, and then we'd throw 2 or 3 plays with some tempo in it, get another first down. So I think, I don't know many teams, I mean, you've got to be a special mindset to go fast as you can all the time. I don't see us doing that, but I think anytime that you can mix and change tempos throughout the game is a huge advantage for you. And then, like you said, you got to make sure that you're staying on the field, getting first downs, and helping out your defense.
Scott Eisberg.
Hey, Scott Eisberg down at Channel 4 in Charleston. Just kind of doing my research on you. Talked to Jeff Bleemer last night, who said, how does a guy who played wide receiver in the SoCon end up coaching offensive line in the Carolina Panthers in the NFL? But I guess that the kind of question is, how does that happen, and how much has that prepared you to kind of run the gamut of positions to coach an offense and call plays on an offense in the SEC?
It's been unbelievable. I've coached every position on offense. I was a tight end coach at Baylor. I've always had, coaching quarterbacks most of my life, the protections aspect of it. I mean, you're having to coach the whole gamut of the offense, and I've always been interested and always wanted to have a chance to coach O-line one day. And luckily, Coach Rule thought, in the NFL, it's set up. You have an O-line coach, and then you have an assistant O-line coach. And usually the assistant O-line coach, like back in the old days, you had a tackles, tight ends, and an O-line guy. So it allowed me to go in and learn from Pat Meyer, which is a great offensive line coach, be hands-on with a lot of really good, talented players, including my man Dennis Daly, who played here a couple years ago, and get to coach them on the field. And I think just the meetings, all the things I learned that in 20 years of coaching I'd never even thought of before, just how it has really progressed me. I mean, light years from where I was just a year ago as an offensive coordinator is going to be a tool that I can use. I mean, there's not a position group on the field that I could not coach, and I'm not at least somewhat of an expert on each one of them. So I think it'll be good for everyone just to have a guy like me that can, not help them out, but they can ask questions. And I think the main thing is a lot of coordinators that have never coached offensive line don't understand the strains on an offensive line, and may ask them to do things that aren't possible at times. I'm never going to put a position group in a position where they can't have success or have a chance to have success. And I think knowing the ins and outs of offensive line play now is going to allow me to be a lot more friendly to those guys, play friendly anyway. And I think that'll allow us to have some more success faster.
Colin Taylor.
Marcus, I guess just first of all, kind of how excited are you to get back into maybe the recruiting world now that you've been out of it for a little bit? And when you are on the recruiting show, what are some things that you're looking for from quarterbacks when you do scout them and talk to them?
The recruiting world and the press conference world is totally different since the last time I was in college. This is nuts that I'm looking at you all on the screen. It's kind of weird trying to get used to it. The recruiting world as well, just guys, they can't come on campus. We can't get out on the road. It's a bunch of Zoom meetings, phone calls, text messages. So it's totally different, but it is exciting to get back out and create these new relationships with the coaches and the players. As far as what we're looking for quarterbacks is just, you want a guy that can communicate, that's competitive. You want a guy that has leadership skills, both through his work ethic and, to be able to be a leader by vocally calling out guys and making sure guys are doing things the right way. And then, the intangibles, we would love to have Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and those guys, but a lot of times some of the best quarterbacks are, 6 foot. Like there's one down the hall, Connor, who is one of my favorite college quarterbacks of all time. He's not 6'4", so sometimes you have to maybe go against what you wish for and find that guy that has those certain intangibles, leadership, competitive intangibles that can get the job done for you, and toughness to get the job done for you.
Let's go back to Michael Lanana.
Hey, Marcus. In recent years, it seems like the college game has had a lot of influence on NFL offenses, just in, the RPOs, air raid, and motion and jet sweeps and all of that. And I'm just curious, for someone who's been on both sides of it, what that exchange of ideas is like between both, and what you might be able to bring from the NFL to a college offense now that you're in this role.
It's amazing how the NFL really studies the college game and try to utilizes, especially the jet sweeps and all the different motions in the run game. I can't tell you how many hours of the Oklahoma film that we watched in the off season. And then what you can bring from the NFL is just learning from Joe, getting in certain formations that allow the quarterback to gather information. Like we're information gatherers. Like you have to play that position, and there's so much stuff that happens after the ball is snapped. if we can give them the information they need before the ball snap, how much better are they going to be able to, to play and be productive? And that's what we're going to try to do. And I think I've learned a lot of things from him. It's going to allow the quarterback to gather way more information than he's used to.
Dick Cox.
Coach Beamer has put together a good, young, energetic, offensive-minded staff. Did you know any of these guys in advance? And, what's your thoughts of the guys you're going to be working with?
Well, whenever he hired Justin Stepp, I texted him. I said, Justin Stepp, home run hire. And he was like, man, thanks for saying that, because I've really been at Baylor and Justin been at Arkansas and SMU. You see the job he does recruiting. You see the culture he builds in his rooms. You see the production he gets in his room. So I think Justin Stepp is a young up-and-coming star in this profession, and excited that he's, that I'm working with him finally. Dez, yeah, I actually coached again my first year, coaching at Chattanooga as whatever coach I was at that point. Dez was, Kitchens was playing receiver for Furman, so I was, giving him a hard time. He put it on us that day. So I'm really fired up. Great offensive mind, former offensive coordinator. He's called plays. Again, somebody that I can really lean on in the room for game planning, philosophy. So I'm really excited about Dez. And Kimry's just is unbelievable. I just met him for the first time last night, and he is what we would say OOU, one of us. Like, I'm excited to get to know him. Again, he brings knowledge of a lot of positions as well, being, such a successful high school coach. I think he can coach everything on offense, at a high level. So I'm really excited to get to know him. We got to hire an offensive line coach, and, hopefully we're getting close on that. We're going to bring in a guy that can, execute our philosophy of toughness and competitiveness. And so I'm fired up, man. It's we've been together all morning this was the first morning we've been together. So I'm really fired up that I got a chance to work with these guys. It's a great staff. And the one thing I would say is it's a bunch of guys that have something to prove too. It's not, some retreads that got fired from an NFL team or a former, offensive coordinator that is at the tail end of his career. We're a bunch of guys that I think they are really smart. I try like heck to keep up with them, but have a chip on their shoulder and ready to prove to people that we can do some special things here.
Hill McGranahan.
Yeah, kind of going back to the topic of quarterback recruiting, how challenging is it going to be to evaluate guys in the portal if that's a route y'all choose to take when adding to the position? How difficult will it be to evaluate some of those things like you were talking about a second ago?
You're going to have to rely on trust and relationships because you're not going to be able to go out and see them throw. So you've got to find guys that that have seen them throw, that you trust, evaluate the tape, get on the phone with these guys, take them through a psychological test of what you're looking for as far as communication. And do you vibe with this guy? Does he have a personality that you want? Does he challenge him a little bit on the phone, see if he barks back a little bit? Is he competitive? But the physical traits, you got to rely on the film and trust your eyes on the film. And then anybody that you've ever met before that knows what they're talking about, hopefully they've seen them and they can report back to you about, at some camp I worked 2 years ago, I saw the kid do this and he's special. So, there's a lot of trust, a lot of trust, if you're going that route.
Hill, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I needed to put my hand up, but with your background, learning from previous coaches, who are some of the guys that you would say have been some of your biggest influences in offensive coaching and philosophy and all that?
The biggest influencer is Matt Rule. I mean, that's. He has invested in my career early on. I was with him in 2013 at Temple. Actually, I was with him in 2005 at Western Carolina. Me and him and Clayton White were all on the same staff with Jeff Collins, who's the head coach at Georgia Tech, and Brent Key, who was the offensive line coach at Georgia Tech. So we had a nice little staff there at Western Carolina. But Matt invested in me in 2013 as his offensive coordinator at Temple. And to watch what he's done at Temple when we win 1 game, 6 games, and then won 10 games back-to-back, to what we did at Baylor where we won 2 games and we won 6 games, missed a bowl, which is impossible to do, and then to go on and play in the Big 12 championship where we lost 3 games that year and Shane beat me 2 of the 3 games. So beat us in the regular season, the Big 12 championship, to go to the Carolina Panthers and, making strides there. So just watching him, how he invests in his guys and how 24/7 he's there for them. The players know he's there for them. I think that's something that I'll always take with me. I think that, being with Joe was a really good experience. I tell him all the time, it's kind of hard to say I have a mentor that's 31 years old, but it was really cool to hang out and watch him work and watch him do his thing. Very, very influential, part of my growth as an offensive coordinator, as Matt Rule is a growth of just overall coach and leadership skills and how you develop programs and turn around programs.
Anything else for Coach Satterfield? See no more hands. All right. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, Coach?
All right. And the last but certainly not least is wide receiver coach Justin Stepp. I think Justin's going to make an opening statement, and we'll open up for questions.
First off, I just want to thank Coach Beamer and the administration here for the opportunity to be here. I got in, literally been here 24 hours as of about 12 o'clock, and pulling into this parking lot this morning and driving out of here last night is just it's surreal. I went with Eric Kimry just a second ago. I've gotten Bojangles and I've gotten Rushes since I've been here. So the next one I got is Zestos, and I'll hit the trifecta. So, man, I'm just excited to be here. Excited for the opportunity. I grew up coming to these games and being in this stadium every Saturday and walking up that sidewalk. So to be here is a dream come true for me and for my family. And couldn't be more excited about being with Coach Beamer and being with his staff and looking forward to getting to work.
Mike Yuba with the first one.
Justin, kind of just explain this process for you in terms of when Coach Beamer reached out to you, and as someone that coached football in the Midlands and just around this area, I know a lot of people are familiar with you and your family. What was that kind of process like? And when he did offer you that position, what was like the first thing you did? I mean, who was the first person you reached out to?
The first one was my wife. She's an East Texas girl and hadn't really been too far from home. We're 5.5 hours away from her family when we were in Arkansas. And so first was just checking with her and saying, hey, is this something you'd be willing to do? The process happened really fast. And obviously a chance to get back closer to home. I mean, I think the closest I've been to home when I was a grad assistant at Clemson in 9, 10, and 11 was probably the closest I've been to Columbia. And then obviously being out in Dallas and being in Arkansas it's been a challenge as far as being around family and spending time with family. So the chance to get back home was something that we couldn't pass up. But, the process happened fast, and my initial conversations with Coach Beamer, I was actually shocked that he called me. But again, like I said earlier, the chance to be part of this and to be part of his staff and be part of getting this program back right was something that I couldn't pass up.
Dick Cox?
Hi, Coach. I'm Dick Cox with Lindy Sports and Cox Sports Broadcasting. You're well known already around the state, though, but what's the most important thing that you want people that don't know you to know about you? And second part of that, talk about two Furman boys getting together and coaching at South Carolina.
Yeah, for the first part of that, as what I'd want people to know is that relationships mean a lot to me. Relationships with my players, relationships with the staff, relationship with the great coaches in this state. I'm where I am today because of high school coaches. I can think of numerous ones around the state that either coached me here when I was here at camp, trying to, as a high school kid, trying to get a scholarship to South Carolina. As a young coach, that kind of helped me get a job. Growing up in this state, growing up around the high school coaches in the state. My dad was a high school coach in this state. So I'm very thankful for all those relationships. But the number one thing I want people to know is that this place means a lot to me. It's home. I tell everybody, every coach I talk to about this decision was, Justin, you don't get too many chances where you get a chance to go home and coach around your family and be around your family. So the chance to be here, like I said earlier, is a dream come true. I'm very grateful to all the relationships here, but I want people to know they're going to get a relentless recruiter. I'm not going to be outworked in recruiting, and I'm going to put everything I have into my players. My players they're my family. That's something that's really important to me, is building those relationships. And I wouldn't be here today without Des Kitchens. It's always been a dream of mine to work with him. He came back to Furman my last few years at Furman, and I had a chance to get coached by him, not specifically, but he was on the staff. I grew up watching him run touchdowns at Wagner Sally, so it's a dream come true for me to be on the staff with him.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, Eric Boynton with the Spartanburg Herald Journal. How emotional, can you kind of describe your emotions about this whole thing? Just a little bit of what you've talked about coming home, your home state, but just how emotional are you around this whole situation?
Well, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that, so I didn't get emotional. Thanks, Eric. Man, it means a lot to me. A lot to be, my parents went to school here, and man, like I said, I was the kid. Now that I'm on the other side of this thing and being a recruiter, I was the kid that signed up for tickets every weekend. I remember those guys on staff had to be like, man, this kid ain't figured it out yet that we're not going to recruit him. But I was in those stands every day, every Saturday, coming to every game. I wore some of those coaches out trying to get up every Saturday. So this is it. There's no other job in the country I would have left for, but to be right here in Columbia.
Hill McGranahan.
Hey, Justin, Hale McGranahan with South Carolina 24/7 side. Just curious how familiar you are with some of the guys who are on the roster right now at receiver. I'm sure you've recruited a couple of them, but what's your overall knowledge about what you're going to have to work with?
Yeah, I've had a chance to recruit some of these guys. Don't really know them too well. And again, I haven't been here 24 hours, so that's my plan. The next 24, 48 hours, the next few days, is to really dig into the roster, dig into the depth chart, and kind of figure out who I got. And that's one thing, is whoever's here, man, they're mine. It's my job to coach them. And I couldn't be more excited about coaching the guys that are here. Man, I want guys that want to be here, and I want guys that want to play at University of South Carolina. That's the most important thing to me. Like I said, this is my dream job. This is home. And I want guys that are as passionate about playing for this university as I am about coaching here.
Phil Kornbluth.
Hey, Coach, good to see you again. What impact did Kevin McCrary have on your decision? No, that's just a joke. Don't worry about that. In developing receivers, what do you look for? Excuse me. What do you look for? What makes a great receiver in your opinion?
Well, I think number one is, do they love football? No matter when you start out recruiting these guys, no matter what position it is, man, do they love the game? Do they love doing everybody? I tell my guys all the time, everybody gets the same amount of hours in a day. Everybody has the 20-hour weeks and the 8 hours, whatever it is that they have for practice. But what do you do outside of the mandatory time that's going to make you better than anybody else? That's what's going to separate you. And so what is their work ethic? My number one question when I talk to high school coaches before we offer is, hey man, how much does this guy work outside of what you require him to do? Does he really love the game of football? So that's number one. Obviously, for me, it's building a relationship. I think you can only push a player as far as your relationship goes. So if you have that relationship with that kid, no matter what position it is, but at my position, if I have that relationship with him and there's a genuine trust between you and the player, that obviously helps. And then, in this league, can he beat press man? Can he get off of press coverage? Can he create some separation at the top of the route? Can he run? You don't have to necessarily be a blazer. I mean, the fastest guy on the team, but if you can create separation and you understand football and understand leverage and the things that go into running a route, that obviously help you get open as well, man. But the number one thing to me is you don't have to be completely polished as a route runner, as a catcher of the ball. We can work on those things, man. But the one thing you got to have is you got to love the game of football. If you don't love it at this level, you'll get exposed. That's what I look for. Number one is, does a guy love the game? Can we get that relationship together? Is there that mutual bond? Is there that trust between me and the player? That's probably the relationship part's the most important part.
Lou at the State.
Hey, Justin, Lou Bajak from the State. What's your favorite memory at going to games at USC, being there so much? Anyone that stick out and you remember the first game you went to?
Oh, gosh. Man, I remember growing up in Pilgrim, South Carolina, and, my dad, there were three of us. Obviously, I have a twin brother who was a high school coach in this state, and then I have an older sister. And we used to have to, we didn't get tickets. Everybody in the family didn't get tickets. So my dad would actually, I don't even know if he remembers this story. He would cut the straws. We'd have to draw straws to see who got to go to the game. So, and that's my number one memory is some days, Josh would go to the game or my sister Jessica would go to the game and I'd be stuck at home. I kid Eric Kimry all the time, but I was actually sitting in the end zone where the cockabooses are in the right corner of that end zone when he threw that touchdown. That was the first thing I told him when I saw him the other day. It's the first time I ever met him and had a chance to spend some time with him outside of going to his school. But growing up in that stadium, and I remember all the games as a recruit. I remember being here with a lot of the guys that played, ended up coming here and playing. A lot of those guys I was with in the Shrine Bowl. I mean, Troy Williamson. I mean, I literally cannot. I said it the other day. I went in that receiver room and looked around and said, "Man, I just cannot believe I'm actually the receiver coach here at this university where some of these guys have played." And I know it's a proud tradition at wide receiver. I get it, man. I was on the other sideline and watched some of these guys play that have played here. I got a picture when I was younger. I tried to find it to put it on Twitter the other day. I got a picture when I was younger and I was in a Robert Brooks jersey. I mean, that's all far. And Sterling Sharp, I remember my dad telling stories about that. There's a lot of memories, but, I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Justin, welcome home. Good to see you. You said that your wife was the first one you told that you were getting this opportunity. What was it like when you told Josh?
It was awesome. I don't, and Rick, you've been around my brother and I for a long time. And we've been praying for you, and good to see you doing well. But he was excited. He was very excited. We hadn't had a chance to really be around each other a lot just the last few years with him being at Georgia State. And obviously they've had good success, and Coach Elliott there and playing in bowl games. We've seen each other. Last year I think we saw each other for one day over Christmas. So the chance to even be 3.5 hours away from him is something that meant a lot to me. And he's obviously proud. And I'm obviously proud of him as well.
Hey, one more thing too, at your different coaching stops and, just knowing how proud you are of South Carolina and high school football here, how much did you brag to your coaching colleagues about the level of talent in the Palmetto State?
Well, I give those guys from Texas, I gave Coach Morris and all those guys I was with at Texas, They think they put the laces on the ball out there, and I tell them all the time, man. I said, boys, there's some good football per capita. There's some good football in the state of South Carolina. I'm very proud of this state. Very proud of I'm a product of the high school coaches in this state, and I can't say enough about it. And that's going to be our number one objective here. That's my number one objective, is to try to keep this talent in the state, and right here in Columbia at University of South Carolina.
Colin Taylor.
Just I guess Colin Taylor from Rivals.com. 2 questions for you. I'm curious, how is recruiting gone? I think you have a reputation as a pretty relentless recruiter. Just how has that gone since you've taken the job? And second of all, is there a go-to order at Bojangles for you now that you're back in South Carolina?
Well, yeah, it's been really the crazy thing is to see the amount of interest that is kids have in this university and have in this program. I mean, overwhelmed by the guys from not just this state, but the previous relationships and the kids in the other states that I was recruiting. Of everybody, Coach, hey, I would love to have an opportunity to talk to you about the University of South Carolina, and it's been really impressive to see the response from a lot of these young kids. And as far as a go-to order, go-tos, you got to have sweet tea. The sweet tea in South Carolina is it's a whole nother level. So obviously the sweet tea, and then today was it was chicken supremes, but usually it's a Cajun filet biscuit and some bow berries. So I stuck with the chicken tenders today.
Good choice. I like it.
Josh Kendall.
Hi, Justin. Josh Kendall with The Athletic. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sir.
This staff feels like a non-traditional staff in that there's no, there's not sort of a name that every SEC fan knows. You haven't been with this group long, clearly, a matter of hours. What's your gauge on how y'all are going to work together and what something unique you can bring as a unit?
I think that's a great point. Coach Limbo and Coach Limbo was at Elon my last year playing. So I'm working with a guy that, coached against me in college, and think a lot of what he's done in his career. And, and just knowing Coach Beamer, knowing him and knowing what he's all about, there was no doubt in my mind that he was going to put together a great staff that mirror his values and what he wants for his program. So that's the number one thing as I was excited about, was being around good people. I think when you're around good people and you surround your players with good people, I think it goes down to the kids. The kids see how close the staff is and see how well we work together. Obviously, right now, everybody loves everybody. There's no bullets flying, but I know that Coach Beamer's put together a staff that when things do get tough and adversity does hit, because we're going to hit adversity this year, we get stronger together, we pull together, and we find solutions and figure out ways to fix problems. I'm excited for the direction of this program. I'm excited for the type of men that we have in here. As a young coach, I still consider myself a young coach. I'm excited for the guys that have been doing this a little bit longer than I have, to be around them and to learn from them and to learn their tricks in recruiting, to learn, different things about how to manage players and how to run meetings. That's something I'm looking forward to. And I think the players will see how close we are and see how hard we work as a staff, and I think that'll trickle down to them.
John Del Bianco.
Justin, obviously growing up here, what their facilities were like when you were here in Columbia growing up as a kid. Just, being here for less than a day, what have you been able to see about the improvements at the stadium and obviously the building you're in right now?
Yeah, I've never, yesterday when I drove up here is the first time I've ever seen this. I remember being, when this place got built, being out of Arkansas and seeing the reveal, and I got to watch the players run through here and seeing their reaction to it. And my first immediate reaction was like, man, it's going to be impossible to get a kid out of South Carolina now with the facilities the way they are. The last time I was here, everything was in the end zone. And I mean, this place is unbelievable. The resources here and the way the functionality of this building and being not just for the coaches, but for the kids and the players, it's impressive. I mean, you got everything you need. There's no reason why you can't recruit the best kids in this state and the best kids in the country to come play here. The facilities are first class, And, you know, I think the number one thing people will find is as good as the facilities are, the staff that Coach Beamer's put together, I feel like it's even better than the facilities.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, how did your playing days at Furman maybe help increase your desire to get into the coaching business, and maybe how did it help mold you become the coach that you've become?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is my playing days at Furman was taught me patience. You know, you get out as a high school kid coming from a small town in South Carolina. You know, the only time I ever left the field was on kickoff. You know, and I got to Furman, and I remember walking out there the first practice just thinking I was going to roll out there and play every snap as a freshman. And you start looking around and you realize you're not really as good as you thought you were. I think the number one thing is it taught me patience, and I owe everything to Bobby Lamb and those guys there at Furman that helped mold me, and Billy Napier, who was a fifth-year senior at the time, and Barry Reinhardt, those guys that you know, taught me what it was like to study the game, to come to practice every single day, to set goals for yourself every day. You know, set a goal for yourself every practice. I'd have never made it through those 5 years had those guys not taught me that at a young age. But I think the whole fire behind coaching was, like I said, growing up, watching my dad coach, watching Ben Freeman, who was my high school coach, watching the relationships they built with us. I mean, you know, I think that's something special. You know, especially what I love about this college game is that you get these kids at such a pivotal point in time in their life where they pretty much, these 4 years of college, you know, mold them into who they become as men, and to make them to where they're better husbands and better fathers and better citizens when they get out of this building is the best part about my job. You know, I tell my guys all the time, if the only thing you get out of me is learning how to run a better route, learning how to catch the ball better, then I failed you, and I failed everybody that has poured into your life to this point. I failed them miserably. It's about helping them grow off the field. And I think that's something that I saw my dad and those guys that I grew up around in this state. Phil Strickland. I mean, Phil Strickland's he's like Vince Lombardi to me. I mean, I watched that guy win state championships and watched what he did with those guys. I mean, it's to think I can have that same impact on a kid is something that I don't take for granted.
Kind of keep it as close tabs on the Gamecocks as you did with the Paladins once you kind of got into adult life. It sounds like you almost consider yourself as much of a Gamecock as you do a Furman Paladin.
Yeah, I'm obviously, you know, my dad, I didn't really have much of a choice, man. My dad watches the games on Saturdays and keeps up with my sister as well. And again, it's just, you know, being from this area and always want to see the Gamecocks do well. You know, obviously, it hadn't been great the last few years, man, but I'm excited to be part of turning it around. And even the women's basketball, man, and being, you know, I'm working for the same university that Dawn Staley does is pretty impressive to me. But man, I'm excited to be here.
Phil Kornbluth.
Yeah. Hey, Justin, again. There's been a great divide in our state in the years that you've been gone. You helped contribute to that great divide during your time up at Clemson. So what can you share with the staff from what you learned up there? How much are you looking forward to maybe, you know, doing what you can to help close the gap between South Carolina and Clemson? How do you view that going in based on what you know of the two universities?
Yeah, I would think, Phil, the most unique part about that is being part of Coach Sweeney's first staff. And again, I owe Coach Sweeney. I literally wouldn't be standing here today if Coach Sweeney didn't give me a job as a grad assistant. And, you know, he'll probably tell you the story better than I can, but I pretty much stalked him and Coach Spurrier trying to get a job to show up wherever they were speaking. I mean, if he was speaking, I'd be the last guy to leave. And he remembers that. And I'm forever in debt for him giving me a job. But, you know, the unique thing about it was Coach Sweeney was preaching, you know, national championships and ACC championships and everything from his first staff meeting at Clemson. I mean, I remember being in there and hearing that. But I think that's the power of belief. And I think everybody in the world would be kidding themselves if he didn't think that bled straight down to his players. I mean, Coach Sweeney, the amount of belief that he has in himself and his staff and that program is exactly why they are where they are today. I mean, it bleeds down to the players. And so to see what it was when I first got there and to see what they're doing now, there's no reason why we can't do that here at the University of South Carolina. So that would be the number one thing, is just the belief that you can do it. And then obviously getting your kids to believe the same thing. I mean, if you wake up every day and you walk in this building and you don't realize how blessed you are to be here, I mean, then you don't need to be here. You know, we got the best of the best in this building. We got the best head coach, and we got the best staff. And I truly believe when you believe that with all your heart, and your kids can see it, because you can't fake that. Your kids can see it, and then it bleeds down to them as well.
Lou at the State.
Justin, you've been, people mention you as relentless as far as your recruiting. Where does that drive come from, and how would you describe your recruiting style?
You know, my parents could probably tell you this, and my brother could probably. It's probably just from being paranoid that you're not going to be good enough, or being paranoid that, not necessarily paranoid, but just worried that, you know, somebody's working harder than you. That's something I've always taken pride in. And as a young kid growing up, you know, missing a workout, being worried to death that somebody was getting better than me. I heard a coach tell me when I was very young in this business and started as a grad assistant, I heard him say, if you're not talking to them, somebody else is. And you think about it, I mean, these kids nowadays with the cell phones and the social media and the platforms that these people have, the recruiters have to get in touch with kids. I mean, you're kidding yourself if you take one day from not talking to a kid, well, they probably didn't talk to that guy today. I mean, they're talking to somebody. And so that's the one thing I take a lot of pride in is, and majority of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, it has nothing to do with football. It has nothing to do with recruiting as far as getting to the school. It's, hey, how was your day? Hey, I know you had a math test coming up this week. How was your math test? But again, I think that goes to pouring in and building a relationship with the kids and showing them that you're interested a lot more than what they put on tape on Friday nights. I mean, I think that started with me as a young age. And, you know, I just take a lot of pride in trying to build the best relationship. If somebody feels, the worst thing I could hear is that, man, I had a better relationship with that coach than I did with Coach Stepp. I mean, that'd be the worst thing in the world for me to hear. I'd rather him tell me he just didn't want to come than to tell him he had a better relationship with somebody. And that's something I take a lot of pride in.
Hale McGranahan.
Curious, who's the best high school player you watched growing up? Who's the best high school player you played against? These are all in South Carolina, of course. And who's the best high school player that you've coached against from the state?
Oh, I'm going to tell you right now, hands down, still to this day, the best high school player I've ever seen in my life was Charles Ben from Calhoun County High School. And Rick, I know you remember him. I mean, they had me trying to cover that guy. I mean, and he was legitimately pointing over saying, hey, throw it over here. And I was like, man, I hope they don't. I mean, I couldn't stop him. And I told him that the other day. I mean, he messaged me on Twitter. And pretty special that a guy from back in 2001, man, messaged me about congratulating me on the job. But him was by far the best one I've seen in person, and obviously playing against him. And then obviously Demetrius Summers, man, I remember watching him play. I remember being at the state championship game here, and it was legitimately one of the best one-man performances I've ever experienced in my life. He was special. It was almost when he wanted to, he could completely take over a game. And obviously being in Texas, man, I got to watch Kyler Murray play. I mean, that guy's just he's unbelievable. But Charles Ben, I tell everybody, I still tell Coach Rump, man, I said that guy's he's the best I've ever played against.
Dick Cox.
Being a college and high school coach for 37 years, I've collected little things over the years, and I just got a plaque the other day that says a good coach can change a game, a great coach can change a life. Talk a little bit about what you see your role in coaching as being.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I hit on a minute ago, is just preparing these guys for life after football. I mean, you know, my goal as a coach, and I remember when I married my wife, Brooke, I mean, Bobby Lamb was there. Ben Freeman, he couldn't come, but he was one of the first invitations I sent. I mean, because those guys, I mean, outside of my dad, my high school football coach and my college football coach impacted my life more than anybody. I mean, and you just think, when you think about that, man, it makes you every day, when you're having a bad day, you got to suck it up, because these kids are coming in here and you never know what kind of problem they may have had that day, but it might be one thing you say to them, and you never know when it might be, you know, but one thing you say to them is going to stick with them for the rest of their lives. And I think that's the number one thing is just being there for these kids and making an impact on their lives. So it's like I said earlier, if all I do is make them a better football player, then I failed them, I failed their families, and, you know, I take an extreme amount of pride in making sure these guys know I love them and know I care. But love's not a word, is a word I'm not afraid to use. I want my kids to know I love them. Obviously, that's built over time, and that's built through through going through adversity, going through tough times together. But just letting these guys know that there's somebody that has their back, and it's not just a 4-year while you're in this building playing for the University of South Carolina. This is 40 years down the road when you can't play anymore, and you have a wife and you have your kids, and I want to be there. I want to be the guy. I want to be one of the first ones to get the wedding invitation. That's something that would be really important to me.
And Eric Boynton.
I was just curious, you just paid a big compliment to Phil Strickland. Did you have a very, a personal relationship with him, or is he a guy that you kind of just watched Justin from afar and admired how he went about his coaching business and the success he had?
Well, other than him beating my brains out my freshman and sophomore year of high school, no. But I mean, the guy was just unbelievable. I mean, I went to the Shrine Bowl with my brother. I still think I was a lottery pick there. I'm not sure how I got there, but especially after I saw the room I was in. But man, Coach Strickland treated me like I had played for him at Batesboro-Leesville for 4 years. I mean, he was, and because I was a little immature in high school, as probably all of us were. But man, I was competitive, and man, that guy just put his arm around me and told me he cared about me. He loved watching me play, and man, I'll never forget that. I mean, I walked into the Shrine Bowl trying to figure out what I was doing there, and I think he could sense that. And put his arm around me, man, and say, hey, you belong here, and, man, you're going to have a great week. And, I mean, that was in 2001, and we're in 2021, and I'm still talking about it. So it obviously had an impact on my life.
And the last question goes to John Del Bianco.
Marcus Satterfield had called you a home run hire when he met with us a little bit ago. Just what is your relationship like, having been in the same region of the country a few years back, and what do you know about maybe his offensive philosophies?
Obviously, I've followed his career. I was at SMU and he was at Temple, and obviously got the chance to watch his offenses 2 years in a row there. Man, they were so disciplined, and they were efficient, and very just you could watch those guys play and you could tell they were very well coached. Think a lot of him as a man, and obviously I think he's a really good football coach. So I don't know about me being the home run hire. I think there's a lot better ones on this staff than me, but. Man, I'm humbled, and just eternally grateful for the chance to be here.
And with that, we will wrap it up for today. Appreciate everybody taking the time, and hopefully we'll do this again real soon with some other coaches.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Welcome home again.